are live.
Ooh, different day.
Yes, a day early because there is no lunch tomorrow.
No,
right?
there's no lunch tomorrow.
So
Lunch has been canceled.
Tomorrow's a national holiday.
One of the few ones I get off.
Wow. Yeah. So how many? Because there's like 21 like Japanese like national holidays. You guys get like maybe half of those?
Probably something like that. Like it's hard because like every calendar I get has the national holidays marked in red, and I got to compare it with my corporate calendar to see whether I actually get that holiday
Is it
or
actually
not.
a holiday?
Yeah.
Do we acknowledge it? Wow.
No, we don't. Yeah.
That's amazing. So hope everyone is doing well. We are here a day early, but it's
And 90 minutes late.
Yes, right. A day early and 90 minutes late. That's an old saying, isn't it?
I know.
All right. But yeah, so anything new on Twitter or anything coming up? I guess we're going to talk about a couple of the things that have been tweeted recently. But yeah, nothing much. I was watching reviews for Twilight 2000.
Ooh, nice.
And I'm surprised that young people, I mentioned this on my cartoon stream, so I'm repeating myself.
Crossing the streams.
But I'm surprised younger people that didn't live through much of the Cold War at all, like were born like mid 80s, so they barely Russia, Soviet Union. What's the big deal?
I was born 80s, so I kind of barely remember it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they don't get like what's so interesting about this setting. You know, what's so interesting about this like World War III that never happened? Why is the Soviet Union such a threat? They didn't like. Please explain this. Why this is interesting to me? And that was very odd. And then the other kind of young reviewers were saying, and it reminded me of this game, of this War of Mine. Chris's reaction to this game was, God, that's so bleak. I never want to play that game again, just because the setting is survivors in an abandoned building like in Eastern Europe. And that was the same reaction of one of the young reviewers, is just like, I can't honestly play this game because what if the world becomes this in just a few years and we were having fun laughing at the table and then our life, it's like, really? That's what those are your concerns.
Maybe that's a bit dramatic, but I absolutely I get it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like,
but that's pretty bleak, outlook. I mean,
have you seen the state of the world?
It really isn't that bad. I think we just have information saturation. I mean,
fair enough. Okay.
If we really like looked at, or if you could just kind of like, put blinders on and just deal with what's in front of you.
Ignore all the shit that's going on around.
No, but your real life, like what you're encountering daily.
Yeah, sure.
We're coming out of it. Like the world survived. Hey, K5, how's it going? The world, will survive. And the thing that I think, or that I hope that this reinforces is, it's not our leaders, it's not the powers that be, it's not any systems or science that are going to support us or save us. It's just each other. That's all we got, community.
Yeah.
And I think like if you look at like human beings in general, this is so un-game related, but human beings in general, the only good thing, it's not opposable thumbs, it's not like gray matter, it's not anything. The reason humans survived and are so successful is community, because they, organize to take care of each other, and that always exists above any other like weird systems that they've organized, and culture and language and everything. Just people feeding each other, people sheltering each other. That's all we've ever done well.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah.
A couple things. And not gamer related, but related, so I will agree. I don't think humans have a monopoly on that by any means at all, right? So I don't really.
But we're more successful.
Okay, we're more successful, I think.
Maybe than termites. I know.
Yeah, sure, right. I don't think that's the key to our success or why we became so successful. Definitely a notable feature. Similar to what you said about kind of like putting on blinders. Maybe I'm a bit more pessimistic. I tend to think that the powers that be, kind of corporate America, for lack of a better term, because that's what I'm mostly focused on, are doing a pretty good job of stripping that away.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Where like the focus, like,
right.
like, okay, seeing other people in other countries being like, whoa, like if America got reported on the way America reported on like other countries, the headline would look like this. And you're just like, you're absolutely right. And like, well, why don't people like get together and kind of like do something about this? And I'm like, the system's working exactly the way it's intended to work, where like you're too scared and speak up.
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I think maybe consciously or not, I think there's a lot of systems in place to prevent that mutual aid from happening, which is potentially why, like, not official, but for lack of a better term, like official mutual aid things kind of seem so radical. You're like, whoa, we're doing this again, and you kind of think about it, you're like, oh, well, what not? It's just we've been maybe not conditioned, but I think kind of.
Oh yeah, it would be opposed to
Yeah.
each other. It's like, oh, you're not going to wear a mask. Well, why would I
Yeah,
help
yeah,
you? You know, that kind of the way. No, I think that's true. That thinking came from, I watched a Katrina documentary that talked about that you know, people helped each other in those bleak circumstances, and the government and rescue agencies and stuff, they were fucking up. They were stealing things. There were, you know, there was all kinds of like abuse of power during that situation. So it is just and mostly because, like, you know, 70s disaster movies or like zombie apocalypse movies or whatever. It's partially because it's an interesting story, but they kind of lie and say humans will turn on each other, and the biggest threat is always humanity's, like, you know, somebody trying to grab all the resources or grab all the power. That doesn't happen in real situations. Okay. And so I think humanity is humane.
Yeah.
I think we care about each other a lot more than we're willing to admit, or there's just like a basic like, I can't watch you starve, you know. Whereas every zombie apocalypse movie says, oh, you're going to hoard all the resources and you're going to build this giant wall and you're going to hold a gun, you know, at the gate to keep everybody away, and that's not going to happen. You know?
I think it would, actually. I think it would, unfortunately. Like if this pandemic has taught me anything, I think a portion of people are assholes or have at least been like, I don't know what the term would be.
But the group but it's like a splinter, though. The group will force that out.
But I think and this is totally game related, so.
Okay, there we go.
No, I think modern life and a lot of other stuff has done a really good job of saying those people are not part of the group, right? And it's a lot easier to point the gun at someone or to watch those people starve when they're not part of your group.
Yeah,
right?
if you can name them as the others or them,
And
right.
I think intentionally or otherwise, a lot of stuff has set people up as the other, which is why I think getting back to those problems, I think why we're having these kind of problems. Right?
Yeah.
If you kind of go, no, we're all the same, then it's a lot harder to watch people starve or point a gun at them, right? But if you go, oh no, you're one of them. Yeah.
No, yeah, that's true, and I think we're so full of that right now. People are making really weird decisions, and you see, and it's mostly like, you know, in suburban life or in lines at the drive-through, or
it's a lot easier to wall yourself off in suburbia than it is in other places.
Right. It's in weird situations where people are really showing their
It's not even actual walls, like the somewhat related, like looking at pictures of like old cities, especially like neighborhoods of like people of color, where the highway just went and like, okay, that's not an actual wall, but you've effectively walled those people.
Right.
Like there is now a wall between you, because who's going to be able to cross a 12-lane highway just to go shopping, right? Or like in terms of like car stuff, again in America, where like access to stuff is another invisible wall where, sorry, if you don't have a car, you ain't getting over here.
That's true. That's very true. They've gotten
Back to
very
games.
good. Back to games instead of urban planning and all right, but so let's start this for this week a day early.
Yep.
All right. Yes, I thought I put this on the table to remind myself of Bleak can be fun because it's a ways off.
What I'm hearing is you want to play the Road, the RPG.
Yes, I do. All right. Welcome to the Weekly. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Chris.
And this week on the Weekly, NFTs are a scam.
That should not be news.
That's not news. Yeah, I'm just.
You have now. That is not just going to like flood our chat with bots of every size, shape, and description.
Right. Yes. And Wizards of the $1 Billion Coast.
Ooh.
And Critical Colonizers will be our third topic.
I was actually going to talk about this. Yeah.
Oh, good. Good, we're on the same wavelength. And actually, Miguel suggested that topic.
Ooh, nice.
Sent me a list or a link, and said, "Yep, it's going on." So let's start with the obvious. So this is from itch.io's Twitter. NFTs are a scam. The full quote is, "NFTs are a scam if you think they're legitimately useful for anything other than the exploitation of creators, financial scams, and the destruction of the planet. Then we ask you to please reevaluate your life choices."
Boom.
And it's nice because a lot of people, you get these internet denizens that are just like, what are you going to do about NFTs? It's this thing. What are you going to do? So a lot of people have been asked for a response, and you've gotten some, because itch.io is prominently primarily a video game shop.
Yep.
And so you have things like GameStop and Ubisoft, a video game studio, saying, yeah, we're working on this. I guess a publisher. We're working on how to implement these. And there's some games that are, even some mobile games and MMOs that are going to be completely blockchain based. And people are like, what does that mean? What's happening?
Spoilers. I don't think the people who made it knows what it means.
Yeah, right. They're just like, that's the new thing, right?
Yeah.
Right. And they followed this up by saying, and also, fuck any company that says they support creators and also endorses NFTs in any way. They only care about their own profit and the opportunity for wealth above anyone else, especially given the now easily available discourse concerning the problems of NFTs.
Yep. I think this was... I also, shortly after that, I saw DriveThru RPG put a much less strongly worded, but still pretty definite, like, we're not interested in pursuing NFT. I forget exactly what they said, but basically said, we're not going to do NFTs either, right?
Right.
This, I have to imagine that itch.io's response was prompted by Patreon moving over to NFTs. It has not happened yet, but as a ex-creator on Patreon, because I shut down my page, I got, middle of last month, got the creator survey still for some reason. And some of the questions were like obliquely related to like NFTs, right? And on Twitter, a couple of people were like, hey, Patreon people, they said they were possibly going to do it. This is the place to say you don't want anything to do with it. And I think they changed something in their like Twitter bio to like, before it was like anti-NFT, and that thing's just kind of like gone.
Oh, interesting.
Right?
Yeah,
So like, I don't think they've moved to blockchain yet. They haven't said, NFTs welcome, but they've kind of been like, scooting over. So I think this may have been prompted as the other kind of indie platform for selling things where it just went fucking, no, don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder because if they started, I don't think they currently do, but even if they started to accept cryptocurrency for pledges and support from patrons, that's going to get things really out of control. Yeah.
And that was my beef with Kickstarter, where again, I do not believe Patreon or Kickstarter have at this point done anything with NFTs or moved to blockchain. They've kind of implied it's in the future. And that's my big deal too. Like, even if you accept crypto, okay, assuming everyone moves over to proof of stake, like the big thing is like, oh, proof of stake is so much less destructive. Okay, less destructive when compared to proof of work. It's still kind of up there, right? It's still multiples of a credit card transaction. So just by a payment platform going, we accept crypto, you're kind of part of the problem.
Yeah. It's gonna be interesting to see how this shakes out. But it's good somebody like Itch came out so strongly against it, because I'm sure there were a lot of creators on that platform that are like, okay, if they're going to do it, how am I going to make this work in my games, or what am I going to do to actually take advantage of this? And people are going to,
I guess counterpoint is only anecdotal evidence. I've seen a couple people be like, you know what, I was on Patreon, or I was on, the other one, sorry, it was Gumroad also.
That's right.
I think I switched those up. It was Gumroad that went, we're no longer saying never.
Right.
And so I've seen a couple people go, hey, entire Gumroad store on sale because I'm closing up shop because fuck NFTs.
Right.
So,
that was they said that was the reason that both Itch and DriveThru were kind of motivated to say something because of the Gumroad controversy. So DriveThru's statement was, in regards to NFTs, we see no use for this technology in our business ever. Short but sweet. Yeah.
Also devoid of curses.
Yes, right. That was a lot more flavor. I loved reading that. And interestingly enough, the next thing we're going to talk about, the former, now deceased CEO of Hasbro, Brian Goldner, at the shareholders meeting in 2021, said the company was excited about the multiple opportunities NFTs afford. And then God must have struck him down.
If that's how it worked, there would be nobody talking about NFTs.
Right. So, but it doesn't make me feel any more secure, because the new CEO is I think is going to come out as very pro, and the new head of Wizards is very digital, very. So we'll see. We haven't heard anything yet.
No, I have to think this is kind of what happens when your company has shareholders.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Right?
Yeah,
Because-
we're actively exploring all revenues of revenue.
Because who cares what the
Avenues of revenue.
revenues? Hey, why not? Who cares what the effects of this are? The only thing you seem to care about is profits.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And we're doing everything as profitably possible.
just by mentioning NFTs and blockchain, we get an influx of money. So let's keep
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah.
If that's the case, if any mention of NFTs and crypto and blockchain gets you money, we ought to see it fucking rolling in about
we've
5
said,
seconds.
We've said enough. We have said enough. Well, speaking of the world's first billion-dollar tabletop company,
Right, okay.
Wizards of the Coast reported their quarter 4 for 2021 $1 billion in sale for the first time ever, making them the first tabletop company to sell $1 billion worth of players' handbooks and draft boosters.
Right. So, like, we can't not talk about Hasbro and WotC and D&D. So, like, now that this is Hasbro or WotC.
No, WotC. This is
Oh,
WotC. This is only WotC. Yeah,
only
yeah.
WotC.
So, yeah.
Right? Did they break that down? Because
Yes.
I
Yes.
want to hear what the breakdown is.
Yeah, so they're the first and only billion-dollar tabletop in sales. So tabletop games accounted for 74% of this $1.3 billion in sales in this segment for 2021. The digital gaming revenue grew 36% to 26%. So physical tabletop stuff 74, and their digital was 26%.
Okay.
And so that means that Wizards tabletop games account for $952 million in sales for all of Hasbro.
Yep. Okay, cool.
So yeah, that's a huge bunch of stuff. So that's 72% of Hasbro's total capital-wide operating profit of 763 was by WotC, and that's a growth of 42% in just 1 year.
Right, wow.
They're not going to sustain that.
Well,
I mean, unless we continue to lock down and
it's
hoard magic cards.
maybe it's interesting. I was kind of hoping they would break that down into what was Magic and what was D&D.
Oh, they did.
Because I have to imagine that Magic is the bulk of that.
Yes. Oh, it is. Yeah, they do specifically. They did specifically say. Oh no, it's just Magic's best year ever.
Okay.
Yeah, just the game portfolio.
I don't know. Do you think they can sustain that? I mean, okay, they obviously can't sustain that level of growth.
Right.
But do you think they will? Like, are they going to be like under $1 billion next year? Do you think?
I mean, they're not going to. Yeah, they're not going to sustain the 40% growth to next year. But yeah, they could stay at this level. But I mean, I think D&D is going to start to slow down. I think they're kind of at this point where they still have kind of both audiences involved.
Right.
You know, kind of new and old type players involved in 5e, and I think that's going to start to diminish.
Why?
With some of the newer releases, people are like, I don't want to go to Magic University, and I don't want to go to Magic Prom, and I don't want to play a Fey rabbit character. You know, there's just so much stuff that's not interesting to older players.
Past Strixhaven, which is all that got pulled from. All right.
I don't think there's stuff, because we know that there's some classic settings coming up in the next couple of years, and how they handle those, and just kind of disappointing the long-term players and stuff with what they're going to do may.
I see that. My thought process was kind of 5e has been out for I forget how long now. At least 5 years, I think.
14 I think was the SRD and the players.
Oh, really? The slow death of 4e, whatever. Anyway, my thought was, I think we've had enough time where the people who don't like 5e have jumped off, right? For whatever else. And as much as people would complain about stuff like Strixhaven or whatever, like, those people are going to be like me, people who complain about it just because I like to complain about it and have no intention of buying stuff, right? But I think the people, I think you've still got your core audience. And my thought was, as long as WotC continues to roll out these books in kind of the same time frame that they've done for this recent one, why would stuff why would stuff drop off? You're obviously not going to have the probably explosive growth that you've had over the past years, but I don't see that decreasing, right? Like people who are going to stop playing have had enough time to go, nope, 5e ain't for me.
Right.
And the people who are there are probably going to still buy the
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, it's enough for it to matter.
Yeah, this is just based on like more recent releases. Like people that enthusiastically cover 5e, like on YouTube, are just kind of like meh for stuff that's coming out. So that does the excitement and kind of enthusiasm doesn't seem to be there for what because they've had Ravenloft and Eberron. They've had like big releases of stuff for 5e, and they need to kind of keep people excited. People are like, what the heck is this? And people are like, oh, that old classic.
Well, you've mentioned a couple classics coming up. I guess I'm kind of a little bit out of the loop. What is supposedly coming up?
I don't know. We know I think they said 3, and of the 3, like we kind of talked about, like they might be doing, because they did name that book The Monsters of the Multiverse, so they might be doing like a Spelljammer, or they might. That is probably more likely. People are kind of giving up on the idea of a 5e Dark Sun.
Oh, have they?
Yeah, I think that
because that would probably be it.
Yeah, it'd be pretty sterilized if they did it. It'd be pretty odd.
I don't know. I think they could. Okay. I have not looked. That's possible. They could also knock it out of the park. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. But I think.
And if they did it, I mean, it would create a lot of buzz. I mean,
exactly.
Huge, like,
and that's kind of all you need, isn't it?
Regardless of which way they went with it, it would create a lot of reaction.
Like, all they got to do is tease like some kind of like nautiloid ship and that kind of like bracketed Spelljammer thing, and the internet would go crazy.
Yeah.
Right? And some like just tease that little starburst sun, right? And then Dark Sun's coming back, right?
Right.
I was trying to think what the other one would be. Well, hey, you know what? They might give a giant.
Oh, Dragonlance.
Oh, Dragonlance.
Yeah.
Okay, I know people are fond of Dragonlance, but Dragonlance just kind of seemed like I didn't see anything that really set it apart from other stuff.
Kind of.
Right?
Yeah. That's
Oh, hey, do Birthright. Humans only. Or the other one I was thinking of is maybe do like a giant middle finger to new TSR and do Star Frontiers.
Oh, right.
Something like that, right? You're like, yep,
we actually
this ain't
own
yours.
this.
We actually own it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, they are optimistic, and they said about this. They said things like, our investment in digital and direct to customer is giving us an amazing opportunity to learn about them in real time via cutting edge data analytics, and reinvent how we bring products and to market and customize it for our most passionate fans. So that is, and it kind of might be like a more like Walmart approach, because that's what they said. That's the success of Walmart, is each store like can so immediately adjust. It's like, okay, we've had 100 people walk by this shirt, get rid of this shirt, so they can adjust more dynamically. And also we've had people kind of in hobby cocoon, in the past couple of years, kind of like, I can't wait to be doing my hobby again, so let me just buy some things and
I envy those people.
Get ready for
People
that
without young kids.
right.
Because during a pandemic, like I've had less time than pre-pandemic.
Yeah, so we'll see. They're not going anywhere, and there's still rumors about WotC, like Hasbro. So if it accounts for this much of their revenue, I can't see them selling Wizards of the Coast.
No, I can't. No,
So I mean, that's just because how many Monopoly and how many can you sell of
there's a
Clue and
Monopoly,
Monopoly,
isn't there?
Yeah. So we'll see. An interesting thing though that they also posted, that Wizards also posted, is they are opening applications for grants for retail improvement grants for stores that are supporting their tournament system and everything. They have I forget what they call it, the W. What is it? WPN, which is their kind of Wizards Play network.
Okay.
And so they give you the support materials for Magic tournaments and probably like D&D in store playing and stuff. And so I was really surprised. I mean, obviously this is for their advantage, but they're supporting brick and mortar, and that's really nice to see, because I'm so you get so afraid that they're just going to push everything to digital. It's like if we can get people playing Magic cards digitally and make NFTs of the art of those Magic cards, will really be in really good business. But so there's applications, and this also happened last year. So retail improvements to help people retain their WPN status or achieve the premium status, which who knows how many players that involves. Right. But it's they'll pay half of the total cost for a surprising amount of. I looked in details about like electrical and plumbing and furniture and like everything to improve this.
We're applying, right?
Yes, we should be. Actually, Japan was available. So yeah, if we can just get some more Magic players, we could definitely do a remodel. But so that was nice to see that there's still, because the new head of Wizards, and that just, it comes from Microsoft.
Right.
So she's very like digital is the way. I did it with the Xbox or the Game Pass. Worked with the Game Pass kind of platform. And stuff.
I don't follow video games, but my feed is certainly not full of people bemoaning the days where they could just fucking plug in a console and have it work.
Yeah.
Instead of having these massive download times and what? Yeah.
Yeah.
That was me being sarcastic, by the way. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
This might be a case where I would agree a rising tide floats all boats, right? Because you improve the store, sure, D&D and Magic aren't going to be the big draw. It gets people in the door, and maybe that would help with
there's
sales and other stuff that people look at. Yeah.
And if people, come into your store to play their first session of D&D, and they're like, wow, I really like doing this, and I want to run this game, and they start their own group or whatever, that would be a nice benefit. And you'll have nice new furniture and electrical...
and toilets that work.
that work. Wow, a toilet that works. But so for retailers in U.S., Canada, and Japan. So that was good to see. Good to see brick and mortar is not being forgotten about. But we'll see how long that lasts. It's only been 2 years that they've done these grants.
Well, that's still longer than I thought.
Yeah. But let's talk about another problem in tabletop. And this is something we've touched on before when discussing cyberpunk and all that good stuff. But the problem with Critical Role's most recent campaign.
I read this article like a gif of eating popcorn. It's like, oh, this is going to be delicious, right?
Yeah, so thank you, Miguel, for pointing this out to me. So the critters are restless and kind of criticizing the new setting of Marquet. Marquet. I'm going to say Marquet, which is inspired by Southwest Asian and North African cultures. So there we go. And so this comes mostly from a Kotaku article by Jenna Yao.
Yeah, which I read. That was a really good article.
Yeah. So,
I guess. Some clash. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. So the problem with this setting and what they're talking about, or what she's talking about mostly in this article, is the setting draws inspiration from real life and what they call SWANA. They abbreviate as SWANA, Southwest Asian, North African cultures. Let's see. And so they even hired sensitivity consultants to build this setting, to kind of craft it, to keep the content free of cultural appropriation, to like make it obviously, inspiration and not just, copy pasting, stealing whole cloth parts of someone's, culture or religion or anything. So her big point in this is, the thing that kind of stuck out the most to me is so Critical Role is making a financial killing right now out of aesthetics that are not represented in the actual cast makeup of the show. So the cast is entirely white people with the exception of one new guest member.
Guest being the keyword there,
yeah. And they and so because of their success and the way that with great power comes great responsibility kind of mentality, that they need to do better is how they've represented this. And the depiction and the thing that kind of most set this off is the first trailer for this setting. They've already had like 12 episodes. I think they've done a few episodes in this setting. And end of last year, they had a trailer for this, and it had the vibe of Uncharted or The Mummy or like kind of Indiana Jones, where the characters were actually dressed in that kind of explorers, like the Great White Hunter explorers costuming, which wasn't like, it's not the costuming of the characters. It was just to kind of, I don't know, start the exotic, give us the exotic flavor of this setting. So, so those are all kind of charged colonialist stories of people of color. And so it speaks to the legacy of disregard and disrespect to colonized cultures that are often robbed literally of their material heritage and ancestry by outside explorers who represent a larger power structure. So that depiction right away was already like, okay, so what are they going to be doing? And also because, just basically fantasy RPGs are about busting in and taking the valuables. And so if you're going to reinforce that and also have it, inspired by a real world culture, that feels a little bad.
I was going to say, I agree with your point, but I didn't get the sense that Jenna's article was kind of saying, okay, it did say they kind of need to do better in representation, but I don't necessarily. What am I trying to say? I didn't get the sense that was her point. I think her point was just kind of, here's the problem. Right? And I've seen decent stuff where, like, you don't have to provide a solution to have valid criticism.
Right.
So I haven't watched the trailer. I probably won't. I tried thinking about talking about this, right? I've tried watching, like, the first episode of Critical Role Season 3 and had to tap the fuck out after 25 minutes because I just can't with this, right?
Right.
But, like, the point that I took from her article was it's almost impossible to look at certain cultures without going through the lens of colonialism now.
Right.
Like and I think her biggest point was, I think even the filter we're kind of looking at through this new campaign is through visitors to the culture. Right? And I kind of thought about a lot about, I don't talk very well today. I thought a lot about that because I've been reading Nahual, the Mexican urban fantasy role-playing game written by Miguel Angel Espinoza. And why I'm thinking about this, like, I back this because this game sounds awesome. It's very clearly, your characters are Mexican. The game is set in Mexico. We are centering Mexican culture, experience, and characters. And I went, that's awesome. Nobody who's going to run it or play it in our group has any kind of connection.
I've had 3 years of high school Spanish.
I've had one, and it's like all the words are butchered because I'm pronouncing everything the way it would be in Japanese, and I'm sure it's wrong, right? But, like, my thought was, this game wasn't written to say no, you can't play it, right? Like, if that was the case, it wouldn't have been written, right?
Right.
I think it's more an awareness of your visitors. Kind of be respectful. Like, if I was going to run this, like, I was thinking blanket statement, no accents.
Right.
Blanket statement, like, no, just like, we're not going to, even if our intentions are positive, we just can't do it, right? It's going to be seen as disrespectful. So just let's just not do that, and let's all be aware that while our characters are part of this world, we're not. We're visitors, right? And I think that's kind of what Jenna was pointing out, where unfortunately the massiveness of Critical Role, okay, they are visitors to this thing, and it's great to have cultural sensitivity people on.
Right.
The people who are from the culture don't even get to fucking play the game.
Yeah, right.
Right? And unfortunately, anyone, SWANA, who would play that game, they're not going to get the attention that Critical Role does. So now, forever, basically that's a bit of a strong term, right? Like, this is the benchmark we now have. And that benchmark isn't even people from the culture they're supposedly playing in. Right? So I think I've kind of butchered that. But that's the point I took away from the article.
She did mention that because, she did bring up the Orientalism, the classic text of that. And the problem that keeps happening. So let me take the role of white devil's advocate.
Ooh, okay, yeah.
And just saying that I think your book is a good example. That book is written in English. So already
there's a Spanish version.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But that book is written in English. That copy is written in English. So already you're one step removed. And not only the culture of colonialism is, of course, a widespread, like, historical problem with mixing cultures in a country of immigrants, like the U.S. But we also have the problem that we're dealing with in gaming of just Anglification of everything. If something has to be translated into English, if a culture has to be understood by, white Christian English-speaking culture, that's the problem. That's already going to cause mistranslation, things that are lost, misunderstandings, and also things being other, looking other, because I don't know. I mean, this is interesting. And part of the appeal, I think, of fantasy role play is you are in this world of others. It's all, monsters and things that have, weird languages you probably don't understand, weird, cultures that are, maybe in complete opposition to yours,
Sure.
interested in taking yours over. So it's that whole problem. So basically, if we go back to the beginning, the origins of this game, and I think there's a really good YouTube video by RPG Elite that just recently did this, made this video. Actually, it may be a few months old, but it came up in my feed, and it's a really good analysis of this. So if you go back to the origins of tabletop RPGs, it's none of these guys are going to be crossover superstars. They are very white, white middle class Americans, educated, like university educated Americans. There's not going to be any appeal. And the thing that this video talks about, and I think the title of the video is "Why Do Black People Not Play Tabletop RPGs?" Done by
The answer is they do, just not with you with that attitude.
No, but done by Black creators. But he says that, and he points out the fact that it is not that tabletop is, for the most part, inclusive. Like after it left that Lake Geneva thing and kind of spread into the world, and especially by the early '80s, where it was more kind of mainstreamed, you can get it at bookstores and toy stores. Anybody could play it, and it wasn't people, limiting people. There were factors within a culture. I mean, it's basically, because of that original stigma, it's white people shit,
Yep.
And you're going to have, if you've got a religious family, or if you've got a lot of peer pressure, you're going over to this white kid's house to do what? To summon demons? Your grandma is not going to be into that. I think she's going to, pull you by the ear to church next time she sees you. So, because if you're talking about either children of immigrants or people that have where the community is very heavily, peer reinforced or kind of like limited, and that was the kind of the points that were made. Is it's not actually the white players keeping you out. It's the culture yourself not really understanding how that fits. Like where because maybe different traditions of storytelling and different like needs for what you do for fun. Like there's much better things to be doing.
You may have brought it up. What was the ethnicity of the person who put this on?
African American.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. I'm going to go watch this because this ties into something else I was talking about. I recently started watching an Urban Shadows 2E actual play put on by like Stella Luna. The cast is almost exclusively African American. And based on some other APs that I've watched, I said my impression is the energy is almost palpably different from where the cast is entirely a certain identity.
Oh yeah,
right?
Of course.
Like, and I think the reason for that is, and this gets to the point about acceptance. Like, it's one thing to say, "Yep, everybody's welcome." It's another thing to feel comfortable enough to actually be yourself within a group.
Right.
So, like, you can go, yeah, anyone's welcome at my table, except for fucking Nazis, right? Because let's just ignore that bit, right? But if you are the one or a very small number of that identity at the table,
right,
even though everyone else at the table is like, yeah, sure, cool, whatever, you might not feel comfortable being, and I'm not going to say your authentic self, right? But they're like, in addition to being the sole representative of that identity, things are going to be different from where everyone at the table shares an identity.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
No,
and
definitely.
I mean, kind of like beyond gamer, right? So I think I'm going to go watch that video because I don't know if I can agree it's entirely, we don't want to play with you. Right?
No, but but there's a lot of, I think he did a good job of reinforcing like there are other forces, there are outside forces. Sure. And basically, because like just different kind of just even neighborhood cultures, it's like you don't have anything better to do than sit around a table and talk about goblins with people. So there's a lot of things that are enforced differently, and a lot of peer pressures that and cultural pressures that keep people from doing that. And like you're talking about, though, too, when you have a mixed table, I think even like if a white player was in the minority, you would probably even get like code switching, like the way they talked and the way they even acted at the table would be different because they don't feel safe to be themselves. They want to kind of fit in, I think, to whatever the dynamic of the group is.
My knee-jerk reaction was like you kind of see stuff about like, oh, why didn't girls play D&D back in the day? And the answer is they fucking did. They just didn't want to play with you because you didn't feel welcome at your table for whatever. And it's even like, oh, come on, and it's kind of like anyway. So that was my knee-jerk reaction to that. But I think I take your, I don't know. Like, I understand what you mean about, okay, if, my train of thought, sorry.
No, it's fine.
Like, okay, your point about Nahwal being written in English, right? Like, there are, it's not entire sentences, sometimes it is entire sentences that are written in Spanish, right? To like emphasize points or interjections or stuff like that. And my Spanish is probably worse than my Japanese, where I'm like, I don't know what this means. But it kind of it doesn't matter because I kind of realize like this book is not written to center my experience.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Like it's written to center an experience and culture and identity that is not my own. And while enough of it has to be, I guess, understood by me to be able to play, like they basically don't have to whitewash it, right? Like I would hope we've gotten to the point where games could be about or center identities that aren't cis het straight white guy, where you can just play. I guess it's kind of, I'm struggling for an example, but think about the like pictures in typical fantasy stuff, right? If the argument is always, this is a game of make-believe. Okay, well, why are all the people in the book white? Oh, just imagine you're a black person.
Right.
Wait, well then, if I have to imagine my character as black, why isn't that fucking reflected in the book, right? And I think that's kind of related, where it's like, I hope we're past the point where we got to pass everything through like this white filter for it to be an acceptable game, where it's just like, it's kind of like TV shows, right? Like you're now getting like main characters are now like all different now because everybody watches TV. So
yeah, but it's still, I mean, there still is translation. Like, people that are playing in, North African or Asian groups are not going to, they can depict that setting and it's a common like understood setting. They could play in that setting very easily, and there's not going to be things that are going to be mistranslated because they're speaking the language of the culture. And so I think that, and even people that reacted to the Why Don't Blacks Play RPGs had that kind of reaction, or had an interesting reaction, because most of them were not American. They're British or Australian or whatever, and they were reacting like, what is America's problem? We don't have this. What's going on?
But you just don't see it.
Yeah, but America specifically has this problem because we have a lot of people that are kind of the same social level, speaking the same language, but coming from so many different, different ethnicities and religious bases, and even like language bases, like English is their second or third language. So it's a uniquely American difficulty, and I think we just have to understand, if we're all going to meet at a table and try to do something in English, we're going to fuck things up. We're going to mispronounce names. We're going to misunderstand how things are going to work. And because the game itself, the history of the game itself, came from just appropriating Scandinavian and Celtic lore and kind of like trying to cram this in to a setting, and we're always seeing that as the default, and anything else is different. Anything else
I think that's a good point. Where like if kind of like that's the default, right? Then I think some of the pushback is now the default is other people.
Yeah.
Right? Like, great, you were the default. You're not in this setting. You're not in this game.
Right. Yeah, but you could even make arguments about how mistranslated or misunderstood, or kind of like queerly, not queer in the queer sense, oddly romanticized the appropriated Celtic or Scandinavian myths and things were to make this setting. So there was already a mistranslation of those cultures to even make this game to begin with.
Sure.
So yeah, it's I think, a uniquely American problem, because in a lot of other situations, you're not going to get. It's much harder to have a diverse table that still has, and in more like recent American immigrant history, people keeping their culture with them, their culture and their language with them, and being sensitive to people being disrespectful or romanticizing or
I think going back to the Critical Role thing and whatever their world for Campaign 3 is, kind of like we were talking with Cyberpunk, and there was the connection. I think like Orientalism has like a much longer history than Critical Role, and like this has been like a bigger problem. So I certainly not going to say Critical Role caused it, right? But it's kind of like the latest straw on the camel's back, the latest effect, where it's like I forget what it said in the article, but it was something like you almost can't escape the lens of Orientalism when you're looking at Asian and Southwest Asian and North African cultures, right? Like it's been such a huge problem, you almost can't get rid of it.
Yeah.
So, I kind of lost my train of thought there, but I think the point.
Well, the difficulty is with that. So if you're going to acknowledge that problem, and I think they did by hiring the sensitivity. I think somebody did that was involved in that. So that the actual setting, and she even said in this article, the actual setting is so bland and so uninteresting.
I couldn't fucking tell you because I couldn't get any of it.
But because of that, because of that kind of fear of, well, we don't want to bring these things up. Okay. So what is the point of even setting it somewhere and even using those cultural references if you're just going to water it down to the point where it's not really recognizable, it's not really interesting?
You know what? I do remember reading that. It was like it's basically it's D&D with SWANA stenciled on the front. Right? So kind of why interesting.
Yeah. So it's a funny problem because so does that mean then that only creators of that culture can present that culture, and then is it okay to, it's like, because this is a very public, this is going to get a lot of attention, it's going to get a lot of viewers. Is it even okay for this white cast of Critical Role to even play in this world? Do they have to just,
as bland and mayonnaise sounding as it is? Yeah, go ahead.
But so it's a funny problem. And like we talked about, like playing games like non-Eurocentric based fantasy games, there's definitely some experience and education and kind of just cultural exchange that can happen there that's interesting. But if we're gonna kind of limit how it's done, I don't know if we'll get to.
I'm not going to be able to quote the book, but I was thinking about this, and I'm only like a fifth of the way through Nahual. There's a section in the book where the author Miguel Espenzo actually says, and I'm paraphrasing here, okay, you're not Mexican, whatever, I still want you to play this game. It's better for you to play this game and get things wrong than for this game not to exist, or than for you to not try. And it's like, okay, you don't need express permission to do this, but consider this me giving you express permission as someone who is not Mexican to play this game. Like, just play it, right? So again, you would not have made this book if you didn't intend for people to not play it.
No, that's a good point.
That's kind of in response to, not in response to, is it okay for them to do this? But it's like, at this point, I don't know if it's better they do it, right? But like, at some point, you got to go, okay, let's just do it, try our best, and try and be respectful, than say it's off limits. And it would kind of be way better if we actually got SWANA people to play, run, and write this game. Unfortunately, that's not going to bring in the viewership and bucks that it would. So I don't know what the answer is here.
And are there even that many people interested in the hobby of that origin to create? I mean, is there enough of a...
You know what? I bet there would be if you said, like, that's what the game's about, right? Like, kind of getting back to that point, like, how many people were turned off of D&D by going, I don't want to play this mayonnaise fantasy, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, it's like seeing yourself portrayed in media goes, right? Like, I'm going to watch this show, or I'm going to try this game because, look, I'm right there, right? So,
yeah, and I think another aspect or another thing that's difficult about this is we are playing a storytelling game, and so if you're not of a culture telling a story of a culture, it is going to be weird. It is going to be wrong, and it's going to be mistranslated, but kind of like the Japanese attitude towards cultural appropriation. We'd rather have you steal our stuff and do it wrong than it to just disappear.
This from Japan, who steals fucking everybody's stuff?
No, but just,
I don't really think they get to.
no, I mean,
that's kind of a
pop
joke,
culture,
right?
yeah. But they would rather have you do something wrong, like perform a tea ceremony incorrectly or wear your kimono wrong, than for it to disappear from the earth forever because no one was interested in it. So that's I think that's a legitimate way to kind of like say, yeah, we want this to live, and it's not even through generations of that same culture, it changes, and it's not going to live. So if it reaches the wider world, it will mutate and it will become different. But if people are finding value in it and want to preserve it, then that's important. That's a
I agree. I just find it
thing.
incredibly hilarious that you use Japan as an example, like, as Japan is notorious for stealing fucking everybody's shit and then butchering it to hell. And
Not butchering it; they refine it.
Sure, refine it with mayonnaise on pizza. And anyway, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm not defending their culinary appropriations, but I think like as far as like what they did with Chinese culture and a lot of like the design aesthetics,
stole their language outright.
No, but it's not the same language, and it's not the same.
You're right. Okay, the writing system.
It's the Japanese refinement, and I think that's actually a good example. Like if you're going to look at, because we're just going to have to go back 1,000 years and kind of look at what happens to things. Like I think the things that exist in Japan that have been Japanified or whatever, still are legitimate preservations of those like original cultures, and they still exist. Like they're in a more modern context, and because of Japan's soft empire, people have interest and access to it. So it's
sure. I think we've kind of gotten off topic.
Yeah.
I have to go, but I think the problem you run into there is we've kind of switched gears to Japan. Kind of the weird sense I get at Japan's ownership, where it's like, no, this is ours now, right? Like this thing's ours now, and it's like, well, sure, but you're not really recognizing where you got it from, where it's like, no, this is ours. And it's like, I stole that outright from China, or anyway. Okay, I don't have any examples, but like.
Well, they do kind of own the car industry, so.
Well, okay, that's what I was thinking, right? Yeah. Anyway, I think,
and that wasn't theirs.
No, it wasn't. My point is like, I'll agree that like, okay, even in like a mutated, and I'm using that in like a whatever term, even in a mutated form, preservation of culture rather than it disappearing. Okay, sure. I think you're going to run into issues, or it seems kind of problematic, where this mutated form is like, nope, this is ours now. And completely ignoring the roots of where you got this thing from another, like that's colonization again. Back to the topic,
no, that's true.
Right?
Yeah, and that's a good point. Yeah, so the comfort of just like stealing artifacts and putting them in your museum means, oh, this is our culture now. Let's go enjoy our culture that was stolen. I think that's an interesting point. So it's not really ever going to be easy, and I think it's kind of a negotiation that has to take place at your table. It's like So if you brought that book, or if you brought that game to the table, we'd have to kind of have a discussion about how do we want to do this? Yeah. So it's interesting.
I still want to play it. But
oh yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I think we could do it. Yeah, I think it's possible. I don't think
I'm thinking logistics.
We wouldn't want to record it, but we would.
I say why not, right? I say record it.
Yeah, no, but I think that would be the most interesting thing. That's probably the best way to do that, is take a game, just put a bunch of Americans around a table, like white Americans around a table, and have them play.
That's what we're gonna have.
And have them have them play a Latino setting, and then let people say, this sucks, or good for you, or why are you just that reaction. I think that would be probably the most valuable thing of trying to do that, is actually getting feedback, hopefully from not bad actors, but from people that are saying, oh, I see what you're trying to do here, and this is upsetting.
Maybe, that's fair.
So we'll see, and look forward to that actual play.
Yeah, really, once the pandemic ends.
Yes.
Anyway.
All right, so where can people find you?
On Twitter, as always. It's HyveMynd, HYVEMYND, where I don't know what I'm doing on there anymore. Yeah.
Nice.
Something. Yeah.
Nice. And you can see me draw cartoons if you go to abusecartoons.com or abusecartoons on YouTube or Twitch. Every Monday night, North American time, I draw a single panel gag cartoon. If you want to support this podcast, please visit patreon.com/upturntable
Yeah.
until they start taking NFT or selling our NFTs of this podcast. And please consider becoming a weekling and supporting specifically this the weekly live podcast, and also supporting our lore videos and other things that we're doing on the channel. And upturntable.com is the website. Yeah. So yeah, thanks for joining us, and give this video a like. And if you're listening
Thumbs
to
up.
this, and please share this with somebody that you think might like the topics we're covering, even though they occasionally meander into non-tabletop discussion. And we'll be back again next week.
Later, mortals.
Goodbye.
I gotta bounce.
Okay.
Sweet. Thanks for
Yeah.
moving that up.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thanks. I'm glad we could get something scheduled in this week. Yeah, this, when I'm listening back. So Patreon listeners, I'm sorry. This is always the weirdest part because we're talking off mic and there's you can almost hear what we're saying and it's almost interesting.
Almost interesting.
No, it's always a funny, it's a funny transition. So I appreciate everyone hanging in there. And we'll do this again next week. Hopefully things won't be better or worse. Oh, thanks for that was a great example. Thanks for bringing the that book.
Well, it only kind of happened because I was reading, and then that critical role thing happened, and I'm like, I see a connection here.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And they're just gonna keep doing that because if they keep looking for other unique settings. Oh, so the problem is then. Is WotC going to publish that setting?
So that was part of the article, right?
Oh, I missed that. Yeah.
She pointed out, if they do, then that's going to become the gold standard for SWANA RPGs and...
Yeah. Oh, I missed that. I missed that point. Yeah.
Okay,
Dang.
thanks.
Okay, take care. See you. All right, everyone. I hope that we hung in there. Yeah, it looks like it. Oh, nice. Another Russian bot. 1 billion. Yes, Orcus Dorcas. That is a lot of D&D licensed crocs. Yes, it is. I can't even imagine. Think about all of the My Little Pony and...
I forgot my lunch.
Uh-oh. Take your lunch. All right. See you, Chris. Yeah, that's insane. They last year they sold $1 billion worth of stuff, but they've been... Yeah, they had a little bit, I guess, Wizards of the Coast had a little bit of distribution trouble. Like some of their D&D books got delayed and stuff, but they are, they're really they're really cranking stuff out. And I guess Magic has been, pretty much going great guns. Yes, I'm sorry, NFTs. Yeah, we covered the, at the beginning, we covered itch.io's just kind of refusal to be dealing with NFTs on their platform. DriveThru RPG kind of in agreement. And then we heard the former CEO of Wizards of the Coast saying, or was it Hasbro? Maybe it was Hasbro that was saying, we're looking into the possibilities. And I think one of the suggestions that I saw was, Magic card art as NFT. Yeah, there we go. Hey, Doozy, how's it going? Nice to see everyone in the chat. Yeah, sorry, this is a day early. So we usually do this on Friday, which I guess would still be Thursday in North America. This is usually Friday lunch, so we're doing it a day earlier because it's a national holiday. And which one is it? It's a national holiday, Foundation Day tomorrow. So founding of the Japanese nation. So Foundation Day is tomorrow. So there is no lunch, so we wouldn't be meeting, and it's probably not worth it to take an extra train trip that you don't have to take with the infections and things in Japan still being so out of control. Sorry, so the first topic we did was the NFT discussion, but I think that's interesting, and I think we went a little off track at the end, but talking about colonization and cultural appropriation. In settings and things, I think it is kind of unanswerable, and especially if because America kind of very distinctly has this fight because there are so many people that are in a different context, speaking a different language, but still bringing all their ethnic and racial and religious and everything with them from their country of origin. So the more recent immigrants and things to the U.S. Are kind of will keep bringing up this question, because as they go to university and like run into then tabletop gaming groups and things, they are becoming much more aware of this. I think it's a very and it's especially difficult. I've even heard, so I've heard French Canadian. I've heard Creole. Creole speaking French Canadians talking about the Creole and the Canadian French and English as this difficult kind of code switching thing that they have to do. And I think a lot of people are facing that in the U.S. with having to be in different groups that are dominated by, people of different cultures, or just at least different backgrounds. And that's criticized, but at the same time, it's a cultural fact. Like, people in a group, want to blend in. And this isn't all that gaming related, but I thought that was an interesting point. And the person that was saying this is, you're not 50%, 50%. You're 100%, 100% of these cultures. If you have to switch between these modes depending on like what side of the family you're spending time with, or what what group of friends, or what neighborhood you're in, or whatever. So it's always going to be present, I think, in tabletop, especially in the U.S. So yeah, I don't think we need to ask people to compromise who they are, but we definitely need people to be as kind of accepting and flexible and forgiving. Forgiving for making simple mistakes or misunderstandings, or that's the difficult thing with a lot of the safety tools and the talk about, people being triggered and things around the table, is we do have to forgive each other for our incompetencies, or our mispronunciations, or, not being educated in a culture. And like a lot of people talk, it's not their job to educate you in their culture. We still just need to get along. So the community, I'm sounding like a famous figure. But the community is important, and I think it's not impossible to base it. So I appreciate those books. Ducey says, I appreciate those books that say, hey, white people play this. I want to have those experiences, but definitely want to feel invited to them. Oh, that's a good point. And I think that was great. Like the book that Chris had, the writer specifically said, yeah, you're not going to do this right, but try, at least try. I welcome you. I'm welcoming you, and I'm kind of giving you permission to attempt to do this, to play, characters in a Latin American culture. And because there's things that I want to show you, and things that I want you to experience. And I think trying to tell, and I guess it is like learning a new language, and the grammar mistakes and the pronunciation mistakes that you're going to make are inevitable. But, if you can communicate, if you're able to communicate in that language despite the things that are incorrect, as long as you're not doing it maliciously or intentionally, or trying to make somebody uncomfortable by your speaking the language poorly. Yeah, I think it's it's always worth it. Yeah, like, yeah, right. So Ducey says, yeah, like, I'm going to screw something up for sure. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, and that was I don't think I made it very well, but that was the point I was trying to make with, people talk about, this comes up a lot when Japanese people are asking me for the pronunciation of something, and words that are not in English, like French words in French or German or whatever, the way they are Anglified and kind of intentionally mispronounced to make them English words. That's just part of the kind of linguistic process, the same way that Japanese people, with the very limited sounds in Japanese, try to say foreign words, and they sound very, it sounds very odd, and sometimes it's incomprehensible. But then the word is Japanese. That's how you say it in Japanese. So there has to be some sort of translation, and if it's going to bring up painful or ugly parts of history, then maybe don't do it. But for the most part, yeah, things need to join the modern world, and I think it's just it also has to do with people's political views and the politics they want to bring to the table and things. That's going to make them much stricter and much stronger in either defending marginalized groups or how they want to deal with things. They're going to have different sensitivities, and so that all just has to be negotiated, and it's definitely possible. Nice. Hey, K5, yes, almost 2K subs. We're in the 1970s. It's been going. I don't understand the YouTube sub thing. I don't know what they're doing. It seems like they're constantly purging. So kind of behind the scenes for this channel, for Upturned Table specifically, we'll like go up 10 subs and then down 10 subs and then up 10 subs and then down 10 subs. And I don't think these are actually like true. These are actually true numbers. I think there's some weird thing that we must have, be scrutinized in some way or something with YouTube, where any inactive subscribers just get kicked, just get unsubscribed automatically, because it doesn't make any sense how these numbers fluctuate, because we're kind of doing the same thing pretty regularly. So it's not like things have dramatically changed. Yeah, it's very fun. All right. Hey, Ducey. Yeah, thanks for watching. I appreciate take care. And this is so tomorrow is when we usually do this live stream. So so tune in. And of course, the archive of this will be on both Twitch and YouTube. And if you're a Patreon member, on the Patreon RSS, I clean up. Oh, which reminds me, let me do the little moment of silence so I can take out this this electric heat noise that you're hearing. So for the regular podcast, and then the Patreon is all of the audio from the live stream, and the regular podcast is just the hello to goodbye in the middle. So about the 30 minutes in the middle. So let me do a little moment of silence to take this out. Yeah, that's retro games. Yeah, that's a good point. Can't grow without ads these days. Yeah, we definitely need to start pushing on YouTube and Google and everything, pushing the podcast, because they'll give us some targeted ads. No, that's a good point, and we do need to invest. And I think that's something, because right now the Patreon is just like accumulating, so we're not doing anything with that the Patreon fund. So that's probably a good thing to do, is start investing in the growth of the podcast and the stream. Okay, so I'll do a little bit of silence so we can take this background sound out. All right, so if you're just joining us, you'll have to wonder what that was. That was to filter out the background noise. But that's a good point. And I think a lot of platforms, I mean, obviously Facebook has done that, but so many platforms are restricting the reach that you even have, and to be discovered on a platform until you pay. So some advertising for the channel is probably a great idea. Yeah, I appreciate the recommendation, Retro. That's a really good point. Is and now that it feels like we've kind of hit this growth plateau, that's probably the next step. So look for that. Look for that near you. And so also too, if you'd like to support what we're doing and don't want to get involved with Patreon, or we also do the YouTube membership and don't want to do that, just the link we put for the DriveThru RPG helps us a lot. So it lets us buy review copies of things and get digital downloads of things for games to play and stuff to review. So it doesn't cost anything, and just using our affiliate link will give us credit, give us a little store credit from DriveThru to let us order either print on demand or PDFs of things to talk about. But So I wish we had more time, especially the topic, the Critical Role topic. I think would have been funner to go a little bit more in depth with Chris, because I think there were some things that Chris wanted to say that we didn't have time for. But it's difficult. I mean, it's a weird fact of the marketplace, and probably nobody wants to talk about this. Nobody wants to hear this, but people have been conditioned, I think, by America's soft empire, because Hollywood is very white looking, that there is an audience, an appetite in non-white people for white, that foreign style entertainment, that Ameritrash kind of looking stuff, big budget, big explosions, and all that good stuff. There's a certain amount of a market for that, and so unfortunately, Critical Role tapped into that, and now they're being attacked because of their success. Now they're being attacked for being all white. So it's a difficult thing because who you will never know. There's no way to say. But if they would have been a more diverse group of people, would they have had the same success? Would they have been as marketable as they were, and kind of be that default actual play that people came to the hobby from? So, yeah, it's a tricky thing because nobody really wants to talk about that. It's not that interesting to say, because yeah, I don't know, because looking at things like the Chinese market and stuff, they definitely have biases about what kind of faces they want to look at. They want to look at young, pretty faces, and preferably Chinese, but they have second and third choices. So it's a difficult thing to really say, and the weird kind of market realities make things even more, I think, frustrating for people of color and from other groups. So we'll see. But there was an interesting line. This is something I wanted to bring up with Chris in the article, and it is Kotaku. So it's you're reading it with a the bias, the politics, but it's interesting. So she did say, kind of quoting from Orientalism, but here we are. The line where she said, "And we aren't the ones who have the resources to tell our own stories yet. We're hired to help white creators avoid mistakes and to absolve them of guilt, to shield them of criticism and feel grateful when we're allowed to be behind the curtain." I think that's an interesting point, and I think that's a the do your own thing and make it a success is a important aspect to that, because why are you even trying to criticize Critical Role when you could do it better, or you could do a more interesting, like the cultural things you could bring to it, whatever you could bring to it would be better in your opinion. Why aren't you doing that instead of being paid by Critical Role to be their sensitivity editor? It's an odd thing, and it's going to keep. I mean, and especially in the American context, it's just going to keep happening because we have this weird, uneasy dynamic with history and everything, and we're willing. That the other thing that makes the American experience unique with this sort of situation is we're willing to talk about it, and we're willing to be critical, and we're willing to get it out in the open, where a lot of other cultures, it's buried and it's unspoken, and there is no open discussion about it. So the same reason that we're hearing all of these criticisms is because people are allowed to criticize, and they're not being told to shut up because you're going to lose money for our properties, and or it's not the correct the correct opinion. Yes. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think it's just going to be, and especially when you're the biggest thing going as far as actual plays, I think Critical Role will not ever be free of that sort of criticism. So it's gonna make you wonder why they should even try to be interesting. And as Chris would argue, maybe it is an impossibility. But yeah, so coming up for the channel, still I still don't have my Mutant Chronicles book, so I'm just going to start doing regular, shorter releases of the Mutant Chronicles fiction again. I apologize for the break. I had some weird mouth stuff going on, so it was very difficult to read. It was difficult to read last month, so I got behind on that. But there's a couple of longer form fictions that are in. There's a capital one that I can read through in parts. And as soon as I have a chance, I do want to try doing a live stream of kind of a reading session. I did realize, though, there's a lot of like throat clearing and stuff that may not sound good live, but I guess that's good because you'll get that live session, that'll be just totally for free. And then if you want to hear the nice produced version, you'll have to become a member or a patron. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so more of that is coming soon. And maybe I'll even try to do a little fundraiser during that reading session, because the third novel in that trilogy of Mutant Chronicles books is about $90 used. It's hard. I guess it's hard to find. So maybe I'll try to do some fundraising for that, so we can read the whole trilogy, or at least have an audio version of that entire trilogy of books. We'll see. Physically how much of that I can get done in a single session. Yeah, I'm curious, once we start to edit the audio, like how long the pieces should be. I should probably, regardless of when they break, try to have them in consistent 30 minutes or whatever segments. And there is, of course, so the next mega corporation profile is coming, and it seems like Bauhaus was the winner, so look forward to a look at the Bauhaus corporate setting, as well as their big personalities, their personality profiles and all that good stuff. So history of Bauhaus is to come, and I have the next story is a Bauhaus. The next audio fiction is a Bauhaus fiction, so I'll have to work on my German accent, I guess. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I think that will do it for this week. So thanks everyone for watching, and I really enjoyed the back and forth on the chat. And so always, and I didn't even switch. Always, this part of the, there we go. This part of the chat should show the chat on the side, which I didn't do. But always, so this part, after Chris has to leave, I'll go back through and read questions and comments from the chat, and hopefully read them so I'm not just giving you strange answers with no context. So I'll read the comments and questions that come up and kind of give you some feedback. It'd be fun for Chris and I to both be able to do this, but there, just isn't enough time during a lunch, a constraint of the format. All right. But ads. Yeah, Retro, thank you for the suggestion. That's something I definitely have to look into. And there's, Google at least has enough ad testing in their interface that hopefully we can find a good way to promote the channel. So thank you so much for joining us. And if you're listening to this on the Patreon RSS, thank you so much for being a patron and supporting what we're doing. It means a lot, and we will continue to reinvest that into what we're doing, so you get better sound and more content. So take care, everyone, and we will be back next week to do the same thing. Goodbye.